Hello everyone, the MJ Hobby Corner here, and I'm here to do another MJ game chat. And this series of videos is a new series that I'm putting up, and basically I just randomly talk about a game in my game library and just give a very informal, basic overview of the rules, of our experience with the game, things like that. So it's a very informal little chat designed to, give information about a particular game. So this week, I want to talk about Rain in Hell. And we just put up our very first battle report for this game. We just played it yesterday, and the battle report is up today, Saturday. So I figured it was a good time to really talk about this game. So, Rain in Hell is by Snarling Badger Studios, Adam Loper and Vince Venturella. Adam Loper, of course, we all know and love as Uncle Adam. Okay, so this is a game that immediately, as soon as I saw Uncle Adam and Vince talking about it in their channels, I said, I gotta try this out. So, Rain in Hell. One of the interesting things it has from some of the fluff, the rule book, it's just one rule book. There are no like other books or expansions for the game at this time. It's just one rule book. It's about 60 something pages, 63, 65 pages. I got my copy from War Games Vault. That's where you can, one of the places that you can purchase the game. So basically it's a demonic skirmish combat. And so you have all these different demons belonging to different factions that are fighting over hell, basically. And each demon cabal has its own beliefs, belief system about, hell and what they're fighting for. So it's interesting, and one of the interesting things about the fluff is that it mentions, the way it describes hell is that hell was more almost like a paradise at first. It was just very beautiful, had these beautiful cities, and really it wasn't ruled by one being. It was more like a group of beings that ruled this beautiful place. But that was all a facade, because of course it was really a place, that beauty was to attract souls in order to then torture and bad things that you're mostly, that you mostly hear about hell. So it's an interesting bit of fluff. It has a little bit of fluff in the beginning of the book. You play the game. What you need to play the game, in order to play Rain in Hell, you will need D12s, and it's a D12 for every figure that you have in your cabal. So if you go with the starting figures, which is what we did, the starting game is 100 points or 100 souls rather, which are equal to points of demons in your cabal. And as you learn the rules, obviously you will then want to play the standard game, which is the game that includes your leader and your devout. That's going to be important, because that's going to really add a lot of flavor to the game. And of course, once you've played a couple of standard games and you're familiar with the rules, they do recommend that you play campaign style. The game does have rules for campaign, and I can totally see that. It's more of a narrative experience, and I think the game will be a lot more interesting in campaign mode. So you need D12 dice, and this is part of a very interesting game mechanic that that Rain in Hell has. It is the core mechanic is opposing rolls. So opponents will be doing opposing rolls with each other. So you need D12s for your activation dice. You also need at least 10 D6. dice, and of course your six-sided dice. And in our game, in our battle report, we used we actually separated our d6. We use different colors, and so some of them we use as soul dice because that's going to be important, and then some of them we used as the regular kind of combat dice, right? So you will need d6s because the combat mechanics of the game do operate with d6s. Okay, so your cabal. Your cabal is what you're going to be forming in order to play the game. Your demon warband, basically. It's going to be made mostly of lesser demons or minions, right? You're going to have mostly minions. And then you have a devout and a leader. Now, the devout is more like a lieutenant, as I see. It's like he's a second in command. And the leader, of course, is your leader, the leader of your warband. Now, one interesting thing that this game does with respect to factions, they don't call them factions. They call them philosophies. So your demon is going to be of a particular philosophy. And I know Julie chose the demented philosophy. And basically every philosophy has its own little quotes and belief system, and the rules will give you examples of these things so you can start to imagining what your cabal is like, right? That was really cool. That was a very cool part of the game. And then so the demented, just to give you a little background, Julie's faction or Julie's philosophy, they're basically saying that you know, hell is good the way it is. Because, of course, something happened in the past. Humans actually managed to penetrate hell, and they destroyed much of that paradise that was hell. And so now it is in shambles. It is in ruins because of that, right? So now that it is in ruins, what's left of it, well, that's what the demons are fighting for. And the demented, pretty much their philosophy is, you know, hell's good the way it is. You know, it's nuts, it's chaos. Well, that's the way it is. You know, and those of you that want to bring it back to its old glory or whatever it is, you're nuts, you know. You're crazy. So that's sort of their philosophy, their belief system, and that's why they're fighting, you know. So, and then you have the Lords of Hell, which is another philosophy, and they're the ones that say, no, we got to bring hell back to its old glory so we can continue to attract souls the way we used to, you know. And I mean, hell's a mess right now, you know. We have to bring it back to its old glory. So it's a very interesting different mechanic system for the factions, the whole idea of the philosophies, and I really like that about the game. And I chose the brokers, which are as you will see in our battle report, the brokers, they basically deal in souls. Souls are a currency, and they're a currency basically for all the factions, but the brokers seems to specialize in trading souls and, you know, that kind of thing. So it's a very important part of the currency system of the game. A resource management, if you want to say that. So that was very interesting, and I thought that was a really interesting mechanic for the game. The very important, and this is very important to say, A Reign in Hell is miniature agnostic. That is another thing that's very important about the mechanics, meaning there's no miniatures line for it, and so you use what you have in your collection. One of the things that I really like about these rules is the way they are written. They're well written, first of all, and nicely organized, but they're written in a way that you could be inspired to do a lot of conversions with your miniatures. I already did several conversions for this game, and you know, these will be little demon figures that we use in the future for different cabals. So it does have a lot of conversion opportunities, and I think that's a plus in any game. So this is a skirmish game, so you're going to be playing in a very small board, and Uncle Adam, for those of you that are familiar with Kill Team, They, Uncle Adam and Vince, referred to the table size as kind of a kill team table size. So you know, you're playing in a small table. It's not a game designed for large tables. And in fact, in our battle report, I think our little version of Hell was a little bit too big. We were only using 7 figures. So that's why it took a little longer to get into combat, because, you know, the table size is designed, the game is designed for very small table size. And that's a good thing. Now, the table size that we were using would probably be good if we were using our leaders and devout, and we would have closer to 9 or 10 figures. You play with 10 figures max, right? Including your leaders and your devout. So that's great. I love that because it's a nice, small, compact game for those of you guys looking for a simple mechanic, fun mechanic in a small space. Okay, that definitely sums up a lot of Reign in Hell. So the initiative mechanic, or the activation mechanic in this game, as I said before, it uses D12s. That is the mechanic that is very unique to this game. What you're doing in Reign in Hell is that you are rolling 12-sided dice, the number of 12-sided dice equal to the number of models that you have. So if you're playing 7 models, you're rolling 7 12-sided dice. And then you're taking your dice and putting them in order on your play sheet. There's a little section on your play sheet for the dice. And you're going from highest to lowest. And your opponent is doing the same thing. And so now you're going to be comparing with your opponent. Whoever has the highest is going first. So, for example, if Julie and I are rolling, I roll a 12 on my first, you know, and that's my highest dice. I put that on my play sheet. Julie's highest dice, she rolls an 11. So I'm going to be going first because I have the 12, and then Julie follows with the 11. Now, the interesting part of this mechanic is as you go further down the line, your opponent may have higher dice than you. So let's say after that, maybe Julie rolled an 8, and after that 12, I started rolling low, and I rolled like a 6. Well, Julie's going to go first, right? Because she has the 8. I have the 6. That can happen a couple of times. She may actually have 2 or 3 turns where she's going to have the initiative because of the way the dice work. Your opponent could have a time when they're doing really well and all of a sudden the tide turns, right? And that's what I really like about this mechanic. So it kept us on our toes. The other thing that's interesting is when you roll the dice and you and your opponent have the same dice. This can happen several times, as you'll see in our battle report. And so the first time that happens, you will roll a 6-sided dice to see who has the highest number, and then that kind of breaks the tie, right? And that person has initiative. But in subsequent activation dice where you have that the same dice, then whoever didn't go last turn gets to go this turn. So it's very interesting. In this way, it helps to break a little bit of the randomness so that there's more alternate, you know, you go, I go, you go, I go. So I really like that about the game. I have to say, I like that D12 activation mechanic. And then you have your D6 dice, which of course are your main dice for combat, but also soul dice. And soul dice are very interesting because soul dice, when a demon dies, if your opponent has another demon that's within 3 inches of that demon that has died, your opponent, or you, right, whichever one, has the opportunity to absorb the soul, to harvest the soul of that dead demon. I love that. That kind of reminds me of Malifaux and the Soul Stones. But again, this is a different mechanic. It's not the same thing. But so you absorb the soul. So you get to roll a 6-sided dice, and whatever that number that comes out, whatever that number you roll, you take that You put it on your play sheet, and there's a little section for soul dice. And you hold on to that. Now that's a resource, and so there's a little bit of resource management in this game. That's a resource that you can use to alter either a defense roll that your opponent made. Maybe you roll a very low soul dice. You can use that soul dice and replace a high roll on your opponent's defense. Interesting, interesting. And maybe you had a low fight roll. You can use your soul dice, if it rolled higher, and use it to replace one of the rolls, you know, in your fight roll, and therefore, you know, add another success to your attack. So very interesting. I like the whole idea of soul dice. It really does add a little bit of resource management. I like that. Again, you're only playing, if you're playing a basic game like we did, you're only playing with like 7 models, 100 points. So really low model count, and that's great. Now, the game is objective oriented, and that depends on the scenarios. Different scenarios have different objectives. One thing that I notice is that it has a lot of scenarios. There's like 10 scenarios in the book. That's excellent because it really gives you an idea for how the game works. And then in the future, you can make up your own scenarios, but you have plenty of examples of scenarios to go through. So that's great. When you say 100 points, it's really 100 souls, right? It is a point-based system when you're recruiting demons, right, for your cabal. But it's really souls. So basically you're using souls to recruit and purchase your warband. So that's just a neat little thing. Okay, so your attack rolls, how your attack works is very interesting and very simple. The game is simple, but not simplistic. This is the same wording I used when I talked about one-page rules in the last video. They're simple rule sets, but not simplistic. There is plenty of strategy, but they're very simple to learn. And one of the things I liked about the combat mechanic, you're using 6-sided dice, and you have a combat score that's going to tell you how many dice your demon is going to use in his attack. Some demons are more powerful than others. So for example, a Mephit would have a combat score of 3. That Mephit uses 3 combat dice when he's attacking. A Slaughter Fiend, which is a more powerful demon, still one of your lesser minion demons, but more powerful among them, will have combat score 6. And then, so he would use 6 dice. Okay. Now, in order to determine the hit roll, the hit number, or the target number, that's what it's referred to. You're using a target number. You determine that by comparing combat scores between you and your opponent. So if a Mephit has combat score 3, and he's facing off against a Slaughter Fiend, that Slaughter Fiend has combat score 6. Because it's greater, right? Because the Slaughter Fiend's combat score is greater, that Slaughter Fiend is going to hit on 2 or over. Now, let's say your demons, the demons that are facing off, you and your opponent, they are the same combat score. If they're equal combat scores, then they will be hitting on 3s. Okay, both. They will be hitting on 3s. This is for attacking. And if the if the opposing demons, if the attacker is lower than the defender in combat score, then they're going to hit on 4s. It's a very simple little table with 3 little columns, you know, and that's it. And that's how you determine your combat score. Now, there are special abilities and other things that are going to modify the combat score. And so that's where things get interesting. There are also, the game does not have a ton of special abilities, which I really like. I'm terrible at remembering special abilities. But the game, each demon each lesser demon will have its own little special ability that goes with him, right? Depending on the philosophy. And then you have your devout and your leader are going to bring additional special abilities, right? A couple of more special abilities to really give flavor to the cabal. And then you have a philosophy special ability, a philosophy special ability that kind of defines the entire faction, the entire philosophy. So there are special abilities that are gonna modify things and give a little flavor to things. Okay, so that's really cool. Okay, so opposing roles. So when you're doing combat, I already described how you're going to get, the number of dice that you're going to use in your combat and the target numbers to hit your opponent. Your opponent is then going to do a combat defense roll, and that's the opposing roll mechanic that I was talking about. So he's going to see how many of your hits he's able to block. There's special abilities that will modify your rolls and again aid you in blocking or in hitting your opponent. So very straightforward combat mechanic. As far as terrain, there are terrain rules. There is dangerous terrain in this game, and that's pretty cool because that adds a little bit more tension to the scenarios. And the way I'm envisioning our hell, our themes for hell, is going to be very dark. It's going to be more of a dark kind of, hellish environment, and so we're looking at creepy trees that I made before. There's actually rules in the game for forests that have souls trapped within trees, and they will affect you one way or the other. So the game does have pretty good terrain rules. There is a list of different terrain types that to give you ideas for your tables, and basically you take it from there. The campaign rules are well written. I like the idea of the campaign rules, and that gives you an option to play a game that's more narrative and a game where you see your cabals growing, right? That's always interesting about campaign play. So really, that's all there is. I mean, your devout figure is going to be very important because not only is he a lieutenant, he is the advisor and heavy support to your leader, right? So when you choose your philosophy, it's going to give you the devout, the kind of devout that that philosophy is attached to, right? Or the other way around, the devout is attached to that kind of philosophy. So very interesting rules. What's our take on the game after playing it? It's the kind of game that I'm going to be able to set up on the fly if I want to, as long as I have the proper terrain, right? And I will have some building terrain vids or whatever for this game, but definitely it's the kind of game that I could just set up on the fly. It's not going to take a lot of time and thought and whatever. It's the kind of game that Julie and I can play quickly, and without a lot of planning. So that's great, really great. And also, Julie will probably give us a little bit of her input in the Martin and Julie chat next Sunday. But we really enjoyed it. We had a lot of fun with the game, and it's very fast paced. That's one thing. We only played with 7 models, but even with the full loadout, which is 10 models, the game is going to be very fast paced because it's a very simple combat mechanic, and there's just enough special abilities that your demons are going to be able to kick butt, depending on who they are and how you play them. So excellent game. I'm hoping it does I hope it does very well, and I would love to see an expansion or two in the future. We'll just have to see what the creators give us in the future. But that's pretty much it, guys. I have the battle report up for this game, and I hope that you guys will see it. It was the first time we ever played, and we hope that we get better at it. You know, the more we keep playing this game, there will be more battle reports in the future, and we will add more things to it as we learn the game. So that's all I have for you guys today in MJ game chat, and I hope you enjoy it. And next week, next Saturday, I try to get these videos out on Saturday. Sometimes it'll be impossible, so they'll go out on Sunday, depending on how behind I am. But next week, I will talk about another rule set in my library, and we'll go back and forth. There's plenty of games to talk about, and sometimes I'll talk about the rules, other times I'll talk about expansions for those games. So have a great one, guys, and we'll talk very soon in the next MJ Game Chat.